Hello friends, welcome to the next part of Next.js 13. In this part, we will learn how to fetch the data using Next.js. So for this, let's go ahead to Next.js website and see how to do everything in theory. Now for this, we'll go to Next.js website and we click on Docs here. So inside the documentations, we need this tab here, which is data fetching. Now here's a good getting started documentation, everything you can read by yourself, and also for data fetching there's an overview. But let me make everything a summary for you so we don't waste a lot of time. Now here the first function which we use to fetch the data is called getServerSideProps. Now remember, in Next.js this function name is reserved. So you can't use any kind of function with the same name, and also this function has a specific job, which is just fetching the data from the server. Now this function and getStaticProps are almost the same. We'll use both of them for fetching the data, but there is one big difference between them, and that is if you come here, you will see that it says Next.js will pre-render this page on each request. And if you go to static props, it says Next.js will pre-render this page at build time. Now that's the only difference between these two functions. Other things are the same. Now let's understand in details what it means. Now if you come back here, now here also we have one important point which just clears why we need these two different functions. Now this function is used for things like authorization headers or geolocation. What it means, for example, if your user comes into your website and try to log in, so they need their password, their actual password, or maybe they have changed their email address, so you need their actual email address direct from the database. Otherwise you can't authorize them because you need the actual password from your database. So in cases where you need the data direct from your database, for example for authorization, or if you are using an app which shows, for example, live score of any sport, so in those cases you will be using the getServerSideProps. But what if we have a blog where we don't update the data all the time? Now in this case, if we every time fetch the data directly from our database, it will just make our website slow because we are getting all the data from a large traffic of your blog, and they are accessing all the time the same data from the database. Now for every person you are giving a new request to your database, which is very slow. Now in that case you need a caching system. Now normally what we do, we use a third-party app and cache those data, and then we fetch all those data from the cache to the user, so that's where our website is faster. But Next.js is clever enough and it has already solved this problem of using any third-party app to cache the data. So Next.js, we don't need any kind of third-party app to cache our data. In that way, we need just use this function. And here also, so this is the function. As you see, it is just the same thing with different names. Look, it is just the same thing. But if we scroll down, you can see when should I use getStaticProps. Now it explains everywhere you need this getStaticProps. So the first option is if the page is available at build time. Now for beginners, if you don't know what build time is when you are done with your project and you run a command of build inside your terminal, and in that time the Next.js will create a package for you which you can upload in a server to make your website available to your users. So I hope you have understand what build time is. Now if in the build time you have all the data available, what Next.js does, it will just cache everything for you. So this will make your website already very faster for your users because they will fetch all the data from the cache and they don't need to send requests to your database. So here it also says if the data comes from a headless CMS like Strapi, for example, and also it says the page must be pre-rendered for SEO. So SEO means search engine optimization, which is the main purpose of using Next.js for your projects instead of React. So in that way, the search engines already knows what is inserted in your cache and they can read them. And also if someone, for example, search something related to your post, they can represent them that this information is available in this blog, and also be very fast. So it will be very fast because you're fetching the data from your cache and not from your database. And also one more point is very important here: don't use this option for authorization because the data will be not private. It will be cached in public, which means everyone can read this, the search engines, the users, the hackers. So that's why please don't use any user specific data if you are using getStaticProps, because it will cache that data also. Now I hope you understand this. So let's go ahead and understand the getStaticPaths. Now here we have said how we fetch the data, which is at request time, and the second one is at build time, so a caching system. What is getStaticPaths? Now the point is here, if we have any kind of dynamic route, so as it says, if we have any dynamic routes, so to use the dynamic routes, now the dynamic routes means, for example, the details page of your website. So if you click on a post, it will just redirect you to some details of that. Now to create those dynamic routes, you have to clear for Next.js that these paths or these dynamic routes should be also created. For example, if I go here and click on this, Next.js will create this path for me and show me the detail of this page, which we'll be doing also in a minute. So for now, you have to understand, if you have any dynamic routes and using getStaticProps, then you have to use the getStaticPaths to generate those paths for your dynamic routes. If you haven't understand this yet, don't worry, we will be using everything in practice and I'll clear everything there for you. With that being said, let's go ahead and see the fourth option. Now the fourth function is here. It is just an option here. It is called incremental static regeneration. What it means? Now the point is here, as I said before, if you are using getStaticProps, now Next.js will cache everything for you at build time. But what if you update the data? If you update that post, what should you do then? So in that case, you have to repeat all the process of building. So you have to run again npm run build, and then you update your data on your server. So it's time taking, and also it's not the best way of doing that in programming. So to solve this problem, we got this incremental static regeneration, in short ISR. So anytime you hear ISR in Next.js, it means incremental static regeneration. So now here the Next.js says ISR enables you to use a static generation on a per page basis without needing to rebuild the entire site. So that's why we need the ISR. So now how to use this? For this, if you scroll down, you will see a great example is available here for you. Now the point is here, everything is just normal. We are using getStaticProps function and we got our props and post, but here we just need to add one more option, which is called revalidate. Now this revalidate is our ISR. Now here Next.js says Next.js will attempt to regenerate the page when a request comes in at most once every 10 seconds. So in every 10 seconds, Next.js will send a request to your server and update the data for you. So that way you don't need to create a new build for each data you have created or you have updated. And also don't forget the time is here, not just 10 seconds. You can use it for 1 day, for 1 hour, whatever you want, but you have to convert the time, of course, in seconds. With that being said, then we have another option, which is client side. Now the client side is actually not used for Next.js because the purpose of Next.js is search engine optimization, and if you use client side, it will be just like a normal React project where you will be using use effect to fetch all the data and then pass them inside your website. But this option is just normal React. If you want to use like this and you don't need SEO, then you can of course use the use effect to fetch the data. Now that's enough for the theory, I think. So let's go ahead and see everything in practice. So for this, let's close this one from here, or we can use it for just copy paste. So let it be here. Now let's go to the VS Code. And here we will go inside our pages, and then we have our index.js. Now remember one very important point. You can't use those functions inside your components. This is not possible because Next.js just search those functions inside these pages. Now if you have any page, then inside those pages you can use all these functions which are available here. With that being said, now let's go back, and here we'll be using all those data. Now after everything, so here we'll be using our first function. Now instead of typing everything, we can come back here and copy it from here, and we will paste it just here. Now as we got our function here, then of course we need our API links, which is just here. Now here we got all those API links which we have recently created in last part. So instead of Postman, we'll be using all those API links inside our project. Now here we got the API and then we got post. So let's see what it gives us. So here if we go back here, and now if I type API and then if I type posts, so we should get that, but our server is not running. So let's say here npm run dev. So now it's up. So let's try it again. Now it's running. As you see, we got 404 because it's, I think, post. Yeah, we got post, and we have just one data here with the title of post 1. But it doesn't matter. This one is also enough to check everything. And also we will create the data, so that's not a problem for us. So now let's go back to VS Code and bring those API links. Now here I'll just copy this one, and then we'll need this here inside our function. So here I'll say just const. So we need first const table to fetch the data. Now here I'll call this res, or for example post response. So I'll say post res, so is equal to, and as it's async function, so it's async, we will be using await here, await, and then we'll be using the fetch function of Next.js. So it's here, and then inside this fetch you can of course use the Axios here, but for now I'm using fetch because it's standard in Next.js. So here I'll just paste the API link, which is this one here. Now it's coming from our local host, so we'll close this one, and after that we will be using our response. So here I'll say const post is equal to, again, await, and then will be our response, which is postres.json. So postres, so we'll get our data as JSON or in JSON format like that. And then after this, for now I'll just console.log to show you the example, or to show you that everything is working or not. So console, I forgot .log here, so it's .log, and then we'll be using our post. So we'll log out our post here and save it. Now if we go back to browser, and for example inside our website, so here if we come back and inspect this and try to find everything inside our console, as you see, we get nothing. Now this error or these warnings are because of Material UI. We are using somewhere the prop of spacing and grid, and we'll take care of them later. For now, just ignore them. But as you see, you don't see any kind of post data here. Now, where are those data? Now, if we go back to VS Code, and if we go back to our console, so here first of all we are getting all those errors of Material UI. So for now ignore them, but the main point is here we are getting all those data. So we got one post and we are getting that post here. So it means we are logging the data inside our server. Now these data or these functions are not available for our client. Now that's a very important point. We are using those just here, so no one has access to our API links or any data from these functions because they can't see anything. So you can fetch those errors, everything, it will be shown in your server, and inside your client you won't see any of them. So it means these functions are just running in server side and has nothing with your client. So now as everything is working, we can just use this inside our UI. But let me show you also the getServerSideProps here. For example, if I come back here and go to getServerSideProps and just copy the function name from here, and I'll come back here and just paste it here, and let's save this. And if we go back here and refresh it, as you see we got no data here, but if we go back here you can see the data is available for us. Now this time we have changed the function name. It means the both functions are for the same purpose, which is just fetching the data. But as I said before, you know why we are using this differently, because it is for the request time, and the second one, which is getStaticProps, it is used for the build time. So it will cache all the data for us. We can use the getServerSideProps here or getStaticProps. It really doesn't matter. With that being said, now let's go ahead and use the Axios instead of this fetch, because Axios is very famous and it is much better than fetch. So let's go ahead and use the Axios also, so you understand also how to use the Axios here in Next.js. Now for that we'll just cancel our terminal, and from here I'll say npm install, or you can say yarn add and npm install, and we need Axios. So first of all we need to install the Axios. Now it's installed, so let's clear the terminal, and here we can use the Axios now. Now here instead of this fetch we can use the Axios, but of course we have to import the Axios. So here I'll say import Axios from, now here we need Axios, so it's available. Now we can use the Axios also here. So instead of the fetch I'll say Axios dot get, so we'll be using the get function of Axios, and it will work just the same way. Now let's save this and run our server again so we can see the result. Now as you see everything is running for us, but if we go back and refresh our page here, it gives us an error. Postgres.json is not a function. So let's see what we have done. And here we got Postgres.json. Now this is the way we are using for fetch, but here for the Axios we don't need this. Instead of this we can use this just directly here. So we can use Postgres and save it. And now if we go back, and as you see there's no error here, and also if we come back here you will see that we got all those data. Now as you see our first post is here, which is just clearly from our database. Now it's working great, and also we got some more options from Axios which we can use for our project. For example, now let me check if there's any error. It should show us those error, for example, inside our log. So let's go ahead and do this. So now here we will say if Postgres, for example, dot status. So we are using the Axios headers. So I'll say Postgres.status not equal to, so 200, which means okay. If it's not okay, in that case it should return something for us. It should return something like new error, for example, new error. And here inside this we'll say fetching data failed, like that. And in that way, if we get any kind of problem from our API, then it will just return us this new error here. And then after that, we'll be using all those posts inside one object. So for this, I'll create another const and I'll say it is post. So we will make everything just clear. Here I'll say await, and also we don't need to access all these options here for every time we fetch the data. So that's why we will just get all those data from our database, and that's it. So for this we'll be using like this, and here we got our Postgres. Now here we can say .data instead of JSON function. We will say Postgres.data. Now this data is also available in Axios, so this way it will give us all the data which is coming from this API link here. So let's close this one, and also after this we can use any kind of or anyhow API links we want to pass inside our UI. For example, our categories, and if you have any user API, so you can use the user data and you can just copy paste everything. For example, copying everything from here and just change the names. Now let's do this also, for example, for our categories. Now here I'll say const catRes, so our category response, so it will be equal to, and it's await. And again we can use the Axios, but also we can use the fetch. So let's use the fetch here. So we got the data. Now let's see what's the category. We are using just API categories, so let's copy this one from here and then paste it here. But after API we'll be using category instead of post, like this. And there we got our categories. So here we will say const categories. So we need our categories. Let's use this as lowercase. So categories, like that, is equal to, again we need await, and then we'll say catRes dot data, but we are not using Axios, so dot JSON. I'm using both ways so it doesn't confuse you, because everything is just same. You can use Axios or you can use fetch. It's really up to you where you are comfortable. So I'll just close this one, and let's console.log our categories now. I hope we got some categories. So console.log, and we'll be using this time the categories, like that. Save it, and if we come back, now as you see we got already the data, which is cat ID of 2 and the test category 2. We have deleted the other categories, so that's why we just got one category inside our API. But now it also means everything is working for us, so we are ready to get our data and use them in our UI. Now how to get access to these datas here now? For this we'll come inside our return. Now this function should return something for us, and this will return this props. Now inside this props we have to pass all the data objects which we are using here, for example categories and post. So for now I'll say here it is post, and then we can just use the comma, and then I'll say categories. So don't forget the name should be the same like here, and then you can just save it. So this way now we got access to the categories and post using the props. So now the question is how to get access to these props. Now this props is nothing but just the props you usually use in React. So if we scroll up inside our component, we can type props, and now all those objects, so these data which we are receiving, is available in our props. So let me show you an example of that. So inside this div I open curly braces, and here I'll say console.log, So console.log, and then we'll be using this props. So props dot, and you can use here posts or the categories, whatever you want. So now we get access to categories, and then I'll save it. Now the point is here, the data which we are receiving here is not available inside our server. It is for our client. As you see, we got nothing in our console. But if we go to our browser and here inspect it and then go to console, as you see, we got an array of data. And inside this, if we search, you'll see that our category is here. So it means we can access to those objects or all data in our clients. Now let's go back. And here I remove now this example from here, but now I want to use the post in my hero, because here we got all those data here. Let me close the console, and here we got all those data, but at the moment they are static. I want to receive all the data from our database. How can I do this? For this, it is just simple. Now the same way as we use the props here, we can pass those data also using props to our components. So for example, here I'll say the name of these data will be posts, and this should be post or props dot posts. So this way we get access to the data which we got inside the post object, which is just coming from here from our API. Now as we got this, then we have to go inside our component and there receive these props. Now for this, I'll press the command in Mac, or also you can use Control in the Windows and then click on the component. This way you don't need to scroll down and up here to find your component. So here, as we are receiving now props, so let me use the props here because we're using props. Now as we got the props, it means props.post, so which is coming from here. Now this name can be anything. You can say my posts or my categories, whatever you want. The name doesn't matter. The point is you should use the same name also here. So now, for example, we got props. Now here we can use, for example, the same post. So here I'll say props.post. But if I change the name here to my post, then I have to change the name here also to my post. For now, the posts make more sense, so let's go ahead and use it like that. And now we get everything as normal. So we need a map to loop through our all posts. So for this, I'll just use this grid here. So this will be my first featured post. Now remember, all these posts which we see here should be featured. That's why inside our database, so if we go back here, now if we go to our API of posts, now here you can see that we got a title, but also we have something which is called featured. Now using this featured, we can filter the first 5 recent posts to be shown at the start of our page. So let's see how to do this. Now for this, I'll go back here and let me close this one. And then here we will map. So now I'll just open the curly braces because this way we need for map. And then as I said, we need those objects. So props dot, we name this as posts. So it will be post. And then I'll filter everything as featured. So before using the map, let me filter this. So here instead of map, I'll say dot filter. So dot filter. Now filter is a JavaScript function. It's just normal thing. So here we will use like for each post as post, for example, or you can use data or whatever you name this, doesn't matter. And then I'll use my fat arrow. And then here I need those featured posts. So for this, I'll say post. So it will take our first post or second post, third post, and it will search for the featured. So where the featured is equal to 1. So if featured is true, then it will use and show the featured for us. With that being said, now what we should do also is to limit these featured posts to 5 objects or to 5 posts. For this, we use another function of JavaScript which is called slice. So for that, I'll use a dot here and I'll say slice. So it should slice it, or it should cut it from 0 post to 5 post. So this way it will show the 0 post to 5 post. Now in programming, we start everything from 0, so that's why I'm using 0. Otherwise, in normal life, we start everything from 1, but in programming, it is different. So after now we sliced it, we can just use our normal map. So now I'll say map. Now we are using the map function, and here again we need everything just normally we use for map. So here I'll say for each post as post. So again like that, post, and then we use our fat arrow here, and of course everything as normal. So we use our curly braces. Now inside this curly braces, anything we put or any component we put, this will repeat itself, and we can use those data which we are receiving from our post object. So for now, I'll just use this one. So I'll just cut it up to this grid item here, cut it out and paste it just here. So before pasting this, of course, we need to return something here. So that's why let's type the return and then paste the data here, just like that. Now as we got this, so we should receive 5 data inside our project. So let's see, let's save this without doing anything. Now if I come back here, as you see, we got 1, 2. Now as we got 2 posts, I have created one more post, and that's why this grid is repeating 2 times. If we had more posts like 5, then it would repeat itself 5 times. But also the problem is here, we don't want to show all our posts just big like this. We want to show the rest posts just smaller like them here. And just the recent post or the recent featured post should be this big like this here. Now, how to solve this problem? It's just easy. For this, I'll come here. So now here inside our map function, we can also check the initialization. So we can pass another argument with the I. You can call this index or whatever you want. So it doesn't matter. But the second argument will be the initializer, which means it will just count our post. It will start from 0. For example, now we are using slice, so it will just go to 5. So if I go ahead and console.log this, so here inside grid, let me console.log this. Now we need the curly braces. So you see the example and console.log, and here we just use this I, so the initializer, and save it. And now if we go to our log, so now here if I inspect this, so and go inside the console, now as you see we got 0, 1. So we got 2 posts, which means the first one is 0 and the second one is the 1. So this way it will just continue. So if we create one more post, it will be the third one. And just like this, it will continue counting our loop. Now this means we can use this also for us. So the first post will always have this 0 initializer. So it means now we can filter this like that. Now if I go back to the VS Code, in here, now let me remove this because we don't need this. So here we can use our if else statement. So here I say if I is equal to 0, if it is like that, so the question mark we need, then it should return this grid from here. And after that, so after this parenthesis, we'll use a colon, and here, so this colon means else. So else it should return something else. Now for that, we'll use another grid, which is the small ones from here. So I'll just cut it out from here and paste it just inside this parenthesis here. Now this way we got 2 different types. Now let's save this and see the result. Now for this, if we go back, and here as you see, we can't see any difference here because we are using the same image here. Now let's go ahead and change that image and use the data from our post. So we are using our post object inside which we got all our data. Now we access this using the post. So let's go ahead and change them. So for this, for the first one here, I'll say instead of this image, so it should be post.image URL. So post.image URL. Now it's the same name which I'm using for my tables. So if we go to our APIs, so here we got post. Now as you see, we are using all the names which we are getting from our API. So here we got image URL. So that's why I'm just using the same name here. Now let me copy this one and use this also for this one. So we see the difference. So here we got image, remove it, and like this. And also for the other images which we got here statically, we can just remove them because we don't need those static images here or static posts here. So until this grid, so let's remove this. Now our code is also very clean and small. So let's save this. And if we go back, now as you see, we got two posts. The first post is big or large and the others are small. Now let's create some more posts so we can see the result. Now for this, I'll just open the Postman, and here as we tested our API, so we got everything. For now, I don't want to update this, so let's dismiss. Now here we got our post. So if we send this, we receive the post. Now let's create some more posts. So for this, I'll just copy this one. So, and I'll say here post. And then we need the post, and also we need the body inside which we can use the new post. So let's remove the ID we don't need. So here I'll say it will be post 3, and the slug is also not important here. We'll be using the same image. I don't want to change the image here, and the category will be the same. And also remember, the feature should be 1, otherwise it will not appear here. So if we did everything true, now we can save it and let's get it if everything is working. Now we got 3 posts here. So now here, if we refresh this, we should get one more post also. Now as you see, we got one more post here. Now let's use Pixabay to give some changes. Use some more images. So pixabay.com, and here we just use some random pictures. So for example, this one, copy image link, and then we'll be using this as image 4 or post 4, so like that. And let's use this one here like that. Everything is okay. Send it. Use one more image, and this will be this one from here. So just to demonstrate everything for you that it's working like that, and it will be 5. Send it, and let's go and check everything. Now we should get 2 more posts here. Now we got 1, so it means we got some errors inside our get. Okay, we are getting everything, not post. Sorry for that. So let's post this. It's gone, and I'll control set this and send this again. And now we should get 2 more posts here. So we got now 5 posts. Now let's create one more post here and see what happens. So for this, I'll just go here and use this image. So I'll say copy image link, and then we'll go back to Postman and use this one here to show you the result. So I'll just paste this one here, and I'll say post new image like that. So now let's send this. Now it's post, and if we come back here, now let me refresh this. Now as you see, we got just 5 posts, and we are showing the 5 featured posts because we are using the slice here. So if we come back here, now as you see, we are slicing everything. Now if I put 6 here, so it will use 6 images. So if we come back, now as you see, we got one more image here. So the same way, if I remove this, it will just go away from here. But there is a problem now. we are not showing our recent or new images here. Instead of this last image here, I want to use the recently featured post. So how to get that one? Now for this, we'll go here and create some changes and for our API. Of course, there are many ways to use this with JavaScript also, but let me show you the simple way. So if we go here inside our API, now here we got our post. Inside this, inside the index.js and not post ID, here we'll create some changes. Now here we are getting all the posts. So all posts is select all from post. Now here we can also query this differently. So here I can say order by just normally like we do in SQL, created underscore at, because created at is the date we create that image, and also this column is included in our table, so that's why we can use this like that. So here now I can say it will be desk, which means order everything descending using created at. So let's save this, and now if we go back, as you see, we got the image of that dog and the horses coming down here. So now if we create one more image or one more post, so for example these images here, so I copy this one and just use that here, and I'll say here recent for example, and send this, it's post. And now if I come back here and refresh this one, now as you see we got that recent image here, and also we are getting that dog which was second recent, so before that, so that's why it's also here. So which means we are ordering everything as we want. Now as we got the images here, let's receive the title, the author, and also the date and everything, so we can see a better result here. Now for this, I'll come back here inside our hero and complete everything. Now it's just easy. Now instead of these dummy images or dummy names and titles, you can use the title of your post. So here, for example, I'll say props, or we can use the post now. So post dot title. So it is the title of our post. So let me copy this one because we will be using this everywhere. And here we get the description. So remember, the name should be just the same thing you're using in your API. So like here, we got title, we got slug, we got image URL, excerpt, content, and everything you are using here. So we need the excerpt, for example. Now let's use the excerpt instead of this desk here. And also for the author, for example, here we can use this one from here, which is the author. So let's copy this one, and here we can use one plus. So plus, and then we use the curly braces, again plus. So we need the plus here. So let's remove this one because we need that by here like that, and then plus, and then we need this or this pipe here also, and we need our image. So here we need our date, but here we can use the plus. Also here you can use created at. So here inside this, now instead of these curly braces, even we can use this without that. So we'll say post dot author like that. Save it, and if we go back, now as you see by author everywhere because we are using just this one, and also we get the post new recent image which we have created here. Now it's just coming from here, so everything is working. Now our data or our post is not as we want. We are just using except one, so that's why it's not looking too good. But we can update this, so it doesn't matter for now. Let's go ahead and use for these cards here also the same thing. So here if we go down, now we got the same thing here as here, so we can just copy this one. So title is equal to title like that, and paste this, and for here now we can say disk is title dot content, or it was excerpt I think, yeah, so Let's use the content. Maybe we got some more data there. Now it's content 1, content 2, so it's better to use excerpt. So excerpt like this, and we got our excerpt. So now, as you see, we got everything from our database and the hero, so we don't need to create any changes here, and later on we will edit all these posts. So for now, let's go ahead and create these categories here, because these are now also static and we don't want to use this like that. Now for this, we'll go ahead and cite VS Code, and here let me close the hero because we don't need this one also. And now here we need our section. Now as you see, we are passing this data using the props, so the same way we can use this here also. Here we need our posts, and also we need the categories from here. So let's pass them here. Now here I'll say posts, again not in footer but in section. So I'll say posts is equal to the same way as above, props dot posts, and then we need also the categories. So I'll say category is equal to just here props dot categories, like that. So now we got access to them. Then we need to go inside the section, so control section, and here we'll receive props like that, and the process will be the same thing as before but with slightly difference, because now we'll be using the categories also to show the black and white sections here. So to show everything and also to slice everything, we need also some logic here. So let's go ahead and see how to do this. So here first of all, we know how to map now, so let's go ahead and map. Now the point is here we need all the section, so we need all the styled container. So that's why after this React fragment, we'll start our map. So here I'll say props. So you're receiving everything as props. Now it's here props.post and props.categories, category and post, like this. So let's go ahead and use them. Now here, first of all, for each section, we need a category. So here I'll say dot category, so like that. And then we'll be using the slice, because here we want to show just 6 or 7 categories. If we show more sections, for example, if we had 100 categories, then it will just make it a very long page here, which is not a good idea. So that's why I'll slice this also from 0 to 6. So here category dot, and then we need slice. So inside slice function, we need 0 to 6 categories, just like that. And after slicing that, we will map on it, just simply like this. So here map, and then we need our parameter of category, so or our argument of category, and then we'll be using our curly braces. So inside this, we will repeat everything here. So now here we have to return something. So we'll say return, and then we need one styled container from here. We are using 2 of them. The first one is black and the second one white. So let's use this black one first, and we'll remove the second one because we will use some logic here to show everything as black and white instead of copy pasting like that. And let's remove this one from here. Now it's gone like that, and now we got a more neat code here. So like that, we save it, and let's see the result first. So I'll come back here, and as you see, we got just one section, and here we got this category name. Now let's make some more changes. So here we will create one more category to see a white category here. So for that, we have to create some logic, otherwise we will get everything as black. So for this, we'll come back here, and as you see, we got my BG color and also my color. Now they're coming from here. We are passing everything for this container as props. So what we want to achieve is that the first section should be black, the second, third and fourth should be white, and then it should start from black. So we will have 1 black, 3 white, and then 1 black and 3 white. And that's what we have to achieve using any logic here. The first thing what we could do is we could just increase the database. For example, here we could add one more column with the name of background color, and then we could use that background color here, and this way we would have different colors. But now, as we don't got these columns here, and also I don't want to use the column here, but instead of that I want to use some logic or some way from JavaScript to make everything as I want. So let me show you how to do this. Now for this, first of all, I need to remove this black from here. So here we need the backticks. So now inside the backticks, we'll say $, so curly braces, and then we got this category. So now we can use this here, just category dot, and then we need the category ID, which is this cat ID from our table. So I'll say cat underscore ID, like that. It should be just the same thing as here, cat ID, and then we need to use a parenthesis here because we use some mathematic terms here. So now here I'll say +3, and then modulo, so 4, so f is equal to 0, then the color of that should be black, otherwise just like that it should have no color, or you can use white, green, whatever you want. Now we got this one. The same thing we need also for the color, so the text color should be also white because we are using the color here. The logic for this I explain you in a minute, so don't worry about this. So here we'll be using my color, and then the same thing, but here the color will be white, otherwise the color will be black. You can type black or you can leave it just like that. So now we got this, save it, and also we need the key here. So key, so let's use that one also here. It will be category.cat underscore ID, just like that, and let's save this. Now if we go back, we should see a white color here. Now as you see, we got no color. Now let me change this. So here if I get the color of this, so again black. So if we save this and if we come back, as you see, the color of the first category is also black and the text color is white. So now let's understand why this happens and how this logic works. Now the point is here we are using the category ID, which is at first 0. Now 0 plus 3 is again 3, and then mod. So the modulo or the mod is used for reminders. Now 3 mod 4 reminder is 0. That's why our first section will be black, else it will be nothing, or if we define any color. So as we are inside loop, then the second time the category ID will be 1. So 1 plus 3 will be 4. 4 mod 4, so the reminder is 1. That's why we don't get the black color, but instead of this we will get a color of nothing, or we can define any color of green, white, or whatever you want. So the same way the category ID will be 2, 2 plus 3 will be 5, and 5 mod 4 is 2, so that's why again it's not 0, we don't get black. So the same thing continues all the time. But for us, as we got one category with the ID of 2, that's why the first one or the first section is not black, because we start the ID of 2. So 2 plus 3 is 5, and 5 mod 4 is not equal to 0, so that's why we get that background color of 0. So let's calculate this, or we can just console.log this. So let's go ahead inside this container, and here I'll say console.log, so .log, and then I'll say here the same thing from the above. So we need this one from here, copy this one and paste it here. Have to close this, And also we need those backticks here, otherwise we get some error. So backticks, and then we can save it. Now let's see what it gives to us. So if we go to our console, now inspect this, and here as you see we got a 5 here. Now you may also thought why the color of the first category here is white and not black, because we have defined that the first category should be black. Now the point is here, this is not our first category, and if we go for that here and API, and I'll say category, so I hope it's the same name here. So as you see, the category ID is 2, so we are plussing this to 2. Now let's see the logic. So here I'll say modulo 4. Now let's use this also inside this console. So we got this one, we have to put this inside parentheses, and then we can use this modulo here, and let's save this. So now here as you see we got 1. So if it is 0, we will get the black color. So we have defined here, like here as you see, if it is 0 then it should be black. Otherwise if it is 1, 2, it doesn't matter. So if it is 1, then it will be white, or we can say pink, or whatever we want here. So it will just take that second color. So now if we go ahead and create some more categories, we can see the result much better. Now I'll copy this one and use the postman here. So like that, and I'll say I don't need this because it's auto increment. And here I'll say category 3. Like that, created address, also the date, so we don't need like this, but here we need the post. And if we send this, and let me get this again to see the result. Now we got one more category, so let's make one more category also. So we get 4 and 5, and we get 6, then we get category of 7. So we get our 7 categories here, like that. Now if we go back and refresh this, it should repeat this just 7 times. So if we close this, now as you see, we got 2 white, and then we got 1 black, and then again 2 white, 3 white, and then black. Now as you see, it is working as we want, with just one difference, which is, so normally you will take that black color, but for now we can just go ahead here and slice or start that from the category of number 2. So if we get the category 2, it will be just 0 again, it will give us the black color. Now let's remove this pink also, it's not looking good. So let's save this. As you see, we got this section of black, and then white, 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 and then we get the more categories, but for now we are just reaching our limit. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, because here we said from 2 to 6, so it is limiting just for 4 categories for us. So that's why it's working like that, but we can just create everything from the 0 and it will work the same way. So it will just show you the first category as black, then 1, 2, 3 will be just normal, and then you will get one more black color here. So let's see the inspectors and also see the result. Now as you see, we are starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, and then if we had one more category, we would get again 0, which means it would be black, and then again it will start 1, 2, 3, which will be just white, and then again if you had one more category, so this way you will get the black color. Now as we are fetching our sections, so let's go ahead and bring their names and also show the posts according to their category or related to their category. So for this, we'll go back to VS Code, and here we'll take care of that. So first of all, let me remove this console.log because we don't need this anymore. We don't want to console.log anything. So let's remove this from here. And also we need our data. So first of all, instead of this category name here, so we are getting this also inside this props.category. So we are mapping everything. Now here what we can do is we can just say category dot category name or title. What was that? It's category name, so we'll be using this one. So dot and then the name. Save it, and if we go back, we are getting some problem. Dot map, and what's the reason? Category dot cat is undefined. Okay, I got some mistake here, so let's remove this. Save it, and if you go back, now as you see, we are getting category test 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's it. So we got all the categories. We are getting the category number 4 because our slice starts from 2. So now let's bring those posts here according to their categories. Now for this, it is just simple. We will do everything as we did before. So inside this grid container, we will repeat one grid here. So I'll use the curly braces, and here now you know the game. So we use props.posts because this time we need the post and it is coming from our props here. So we are getting post from props.post. So now we got this. Now we know how to do this. So first of all, we need to filter because we need the data according to their category. So now I'll say dot filter, and here how we filter this, I'll say take every data as post. So for this, and then we'll be using the arrow key. So just as normally we do, and then we need the post dot category. So category underscore name, because our relationship runs to the category name. So if we come back here, now as you see here, we got here the foreign key. So foreign key is the category name. So that's why we need the category name also here. If you use ID here, you need to filter everything according to their ID. But for me, it's category name. So let's go ahead and do this. Now here I'll say category name is equal to, now as we are inside the loop and we are fetching all the categories here, then we can use the category name again here. So here now I'll say category dot category name. So if they are equal, they should give me the data of that as post. So now we are getting every post according to our relationship. So after this, we need just 3 posts here because for each section, so as we go here, now you see we got 3 posts. So we need the slice again. So now we'll just slice this. So we cut this from 0 to 3. Now it's limited. And then of course, normally we need our map like that. Now let's save this. So everything is indented for us. Now it's done. So now we use our map function here. So for map function, again, we need everything as post, and then our fat arrow, curly braces, and inside this we will return something. So what will we return? We will return this grid. So this entire grid, we'll just copy or cut this one from here and paste it just here. So the other grids, we don't need them. So let's remove them from here. Like that. It's gone. This grid is for container. This should be here. And now we are finished with that. But here for the title, for example, we can use now the real post name. So here I'll say post dot, or as what we are getting this, it is post. So here post dot title. So we'll get everything as post dot title, but we don't need these curly braces because we got them already here. In the same way, we'll be using here also. So let's remove this, and I'll say post dot excerpt. So we need the excerpt this time, like that. And also for the date and everything we can add here. And also for the image, let's use the real image. so we can see a good difference. So here we will say the category name is the same. Now here it's image URL, so post.image URL. I think it was just like that, and it is done. Save it, and let's go back and see the result. Now, as you see, we got no data here. Now, the reason is here, we are getting all the data according to their category. But for category 4, we got no post. So, if I go back to Postman and here try to get the categories, not the categories, but we need the posts here. So, let's use posts and get this. We got the not found here. So API posts. So let's try this. Why can't we get this? Now we are running here. Everything is okay. So now sometimes you have to debug everything and see what's the problem. API posts. Now that was like that, or it is just post, I think. Yeah. So sorry, my mistake. We need just post here. So in Postman, we'll be just using the post and send it. Now as you see, we got all the posts here, and the category name is just the new category name, which is the category number 2 or 1. So here, if we search for that category ID, so now let's search for that. Now as you see, we got no category with that name, so that's why it's not finding that, and of course if it doesn't find, you will not get that post also. So let's go ahead and create one post with the same category name. So let me use this again so I can see the name, and then we'll post something to our category, so like that, and the body, and we got everything actually. So now here, instead of this new category name, or we can create one with the name of new category name like this, and just send it. We got that, and if everything is working, now we should get this. Yeah, it's here. So let's go ahead and refresh this one and see what happens. Now we got no category again because these categories are just new. So let's go ahead and find that category of sex. So for this, we will just go ahead here, and we need to work on our filter because we are filtering everything. That's why we are not getting anything. So 0 to, for example, 10 here. So we can see everything like that. And as you see, we got just one category and it's post also. So everything is working. The reason we are not getting the post for these categories is because in the post, if we go here, so if we search for our post, so as you see, we have just this category name. It's my mistake. I'm sorry for that. But if we change that, so if we add some more posts, so let's create one of them. So you see the example, and you will give the same category name. So let's do this. So category, so I see everything. Now here, and inside the body, we need to create a new post. So it will be just image 2 or something like that. Let's go ahead and the rest will be the same, and created add. I don't need this also, just a new category. So we will use the test category 2, and we will apply everything on that. So send this, it's created, and now we got this one. Here we should get the new image or the new post. So let's see, we got nothing. So I think the post is not working, and the reason is I'm using the category still. So let's use this as post and send this, and now it should work. Now let's get the post and see if everything is working. Now we got one new post here. So let's see if everything is working. Now if I refresh this one here, now as you see, we got our new post. Now if I do this the same time again, so here for example, let me use these apples here, copy image link, we need this. And if I come back here and just change this image, so our new post 2, we can say here, send this, and once more, let's use the same apple here. Or let me copy one thing here again. So let's use this. And then we'll be using that also here, like that, and send this. And we are getting all the time. That's not good. Post, Control Z, and the name also should be 3. Like that, and it will be post, and it's done. Now let's see the result. So as you see, we got 3 posts and everything is according to its category. So it is test category 2, and also we are getting the data for our new category name. Now these categories has no data, that's why we don't see their posts also here. So always remember, if you want to create new category, then attach some posts for that. Otherwise, you can see some errors like that, and that is what we actually don't want. But for now, we got everything as the Bill Gates blog. So let's go ahead and take care of the static paths and dynamic routes, because we have talked about this also, getStaticPaths. So for this, we need some dynamic routes so we can show the details page of our blog. So let me first show you what I mean by that. So if we go to getSnotes.com, so getSnotes.com, and here as website, as you see, everything seems just as we did, just like that. We have not a good post, but it's looking just the same way here, and also the navbar and everything is almost the same. So for our purpose here, we need also details page. For example, if we click here, it will route us to this page where we can read the details of that post. But what I want to show you here is this route. Now this is the path to this location, to this details page, or to this post. So to get to this paths, we have something here, and this is the ID of that. In modern websites, they are using slug. So slug is nothing but the title here with some hyphen inside it. So as you see, we got the same title but some hyphens in it. So if you don't know how to do this, go ahead and watch my last video on Next.js 13. With that being said, now we also need to get access to this route's name here before we use the ID. For example, 1, post 2, post 3. So now, as I said, everything is as slug, so we are using also slug. But now the point is here, if we want to show the details of a post, then we have to get access to the URLs here. So in React, we did this in different ways, but in Next.js, it is very easy. Let me show you how to do this. Now for this, we'll go back to VS Code, and here, let me close these. We don't need them, but here we need the pages folder here, because again, as I said before, it is important to use getStaticProps and getStaticPaths inside the pages folder. Otherwise, it will not work. So here inside the pages, if we open this, we got our API. Now we don't need the API, so let me close this one also. So here we can create one more page here. For example, I'll create a new folder and I'll say it is posts. Now inside this, we'll create another file. Now this file will be our details page, so you can call this anything you want. But in Next.js, as I said, to get access to the URLs, for example, here also Next.js, as you see, they're using the slug. We have to get access to this slug. So in Next.js, we need to create a different form of file, so that way we will get access to that URL path. So for that, we'll create a new file, and then we use the square brackets, not curly braces, but the square brackets. And inside this, anything we type, for example, slug or ID or whatever you call this, and that you will get that path of that post. Now we have to close this also the same way, and then we use .js or .jsx, whatever you want. And now inside this we can normally create a React component. So I'll say RAFCE and create this. Now it's called Slack, but I don't call this Slack. Instead of this, as it's a details page, so let's call this also details. Now we say it's details, and inside this we'll post also the details. So don't need the square brackets, but I'll say it's details page, and we have to also export this details. So details, export default details. Now save it. Now we got our component. So now you may think, why am I using this naming convention if I need the details page? Now the point is here, if you put a square brackets in a name, then the Next.js will give us access to this particular slug or path. So it can be a slug, it can be ID, whatever you give in this URL, it will be just added to this slug here. So now if we want to get access to the slug or the parameter we are passing in the URL, for this we need the router from Next router. So here I'll say import router or use router from Next. So Next/router. We will need the router from here. So now we can use it here. We also need the curly braces here, and then we can use this. Now to use this, we say here const router. So router is equal to use router, for example. Now this will be equal to that, and then we need the curly braces here again to show that parameter. Now here I'll say router. So we are using that router dot query, and inside this query we can find our slug. So dot slug. So let's save this and let's go ahead and test everything. Now as we got one page with the name of post, and after that if we put any kind of URL, we will be redirected to that details page. For example, now let me type details or anything you call this. So to see the answer, now as you see we got the details here. Now here if I put something else like that and enter, as you see we got the same thing from here. Now we got directly access to this route, so which means now we can use this. So we can use this route name, which can be anything. For example, if it would be ID of 1, we can just run an SQL query on that. So we say if the route or the post ID is same to the ID of my post, then show me the details of that. So let's see everything in action. Now for this we'll come here, and now we don't need this. So let's remove this. So use route. For now we don't need this also. So let's save everything. But now here we need something else which we have talked before, and this is getStaticPaths. We have to use this function in order to get all the data, in order to create those paths in Next.js. So here I'll copy this one from here. Now I'll paste it after my export, and as you see it's the same function and it returns some paths for us. So we'll talk about these paths in a moment, but for now, first of all, let's fetch our data, because otherwise we can't say the Next.js from where should it generate those paths or those URLs. So for this, here we need the same concept. So here I'll say const res is equal to, we can use fetch or you can use the Axios. So here I'll say fetch, and now we need our URL, which is HTTPS. So I'll type everything localhost, so like that, and then we need the port number of 3000. After that we got API, and then we got post. So this way we get access to all of our posts. Now as we are using fetch, we need one more const table. So here I'll say const post is equal to await, and then we'll take everything as JSON from it. So response.json, like that. Now here we got also our return, but at the moment we got no data for this. Now this is just the example from Next.js. So if you want to create statically, if you have just 5 or 3 posts, you could use also ID of 1, ID of 2, ID of 3, and ID of 4. This way the Next.js would also find every post for you. But for us, as we get more posts here, so we need more routes, more IDs. So that's why we need to map everything. So here I'll say const paths is equal to, and then we need this post, this JSON data here. So post dot, and we map this. It's just simple like that. And every map as post, then we get our fat arrow, parentheses, and then the curly braces. Now inside this, we need something important, which is called params. Now inside these params, because as you see, we got here params, and then we pass the ID of that post. So this way, Next.js create the paths for us. So that's why we are using the params here also. And then we'll say the param is equal to, for example, so here slug. Now the slug is, as I said, it's here. So it's just coming from here. If you're using ID like them, then you have to put the ID here, and also you need to use the same name here, which will be ID. In our case, it's a slug, so we'll be using slug, and then we need all those slugs or all those paths we want to create. So for every post slug, we want to create a path in Next.js. So for that, I'll say here post.slug. And again here, if you want to use the ID, then you should be using post.id and not post.slug. So in our case is slug, so here we get the slug. And now as we are getting the slug, so Next.js need everything as a string. Now as you see, we got here also the ID as a string. So if you want to use the ID, you have to create, or you have to convert this to a string. In our case, it is a string, but still I will just convert this to a string also to be secure. Now here we are finished for this, and now instead of these paths here, so we got everything. Now let's remove this one from here. We'll be using a different way. Now here we will say just return our curly braces, and inside this we will use this paths. You can name this anything you want. So first of all, we give our paths, and then we'll be using this fallback from here. So it can be just here. Now as we got our fallback and it is false, there's no comma, and also we don't need double curly braces but just once. So we got everything in the return. So let's remove them also from here. And now we got our return here also. So now what we need is just one here to close this curly braces here. I have removed that one also. So now let's save this so we can see everything. So here we will pass the paths, which will return this map function in which we got our params and the IDs which we want to use for our paths. And after that we got this fallback false. Now fallbacks itself is another topic, but let me show you what it really means. Now the point is here, if the Next.js doesn't find a path, for example, if we go back here inside our website, and then here we type something different. So I'll just type like that. Now what happens? Look at this. Next.js gives us 404. This page could not be found. And this comes actually from fallback. If fallback is false, then it means if the Next.js doesn't find some post here for example, any path which we have just tried to dynamically run. For example, if a user tries to type 12 to see something here, then if Next.js doesn't find this path, then it will return them to this 404 page. And that is exactly what this fallback does. But if you put this to true, then you have to create your own page where you want to return your user. Now this is something else, but here it's enough to use the false for now. So let me remove this comment also from here. We don't need this. Save it. So now we have successfully created our paths. Now the Next.js knows that for each post we got in our database, we want to create a new path by using its slug. So now we need another method to show the details according to those slugs here. So for this, as we talked in theory at the start of the video, with getStaticPaths, we need also getStaticProps. So for this, we need the same function actually. So let me copy this one from here and we'll just change the name. So it is not getStaticPaths, it will be getStaticProps. So like that, and we need to close our curly braces, and inside this everything will be just like here. So let me use this from here, not cut but just copy we need. So here, and after that we need to return something, of course. So let's return, then we need here our curly braces. Now what we do here, now as you see we got this post. So here, now let me copy this one and show you everything here. We don't need this HTTPS protocol, so let's enter, and now we got some 404 page because it's not finding this path. So let's use this. Yeah, I always forget that it's post and not posts. So now let's remove this post from here also, and also here we don't need this. Now let's save this. Now if we come back here, you can see in every post we got our slug. So we have one more API route for our details page which we have created in the last video. So that way we would be just using this slug from here, and after this if we paste it and enter, as you see we get all the information about that particular data. So the same concept we will be using here. So here we need to get access after this post to that slug. So now we know that this slug will contain our slug of post. So that's why we can just use this one here also. Now to use this, we need to do something else. So here we don't need these strings anymore. So let me remove this. So now we'll use our backticks. So I'll use the backticks here like that. And after backticks, now we can use the $sign to use some JavaScript here. For example, if you put the curly braces, then we have the access to this slug, or we can get access to the slug. Now to get to access to the slug, we need to accept params here. Params, all the parameters. So we get the params. Now inside this params, we can find the slug also. So that's why I'll say params.slug. Now as we got that, so this JSON data will be just the same as here. It will be just one post like this. So it means now here we can use this as post and not posts because it's just one single post. And then as we did before, we need to use everything in props. So I'll say here props, and after that we need the curly braces, and then we need to use this post. As I said, now this post will be available for us using the props, so we have to receive the props here. Now here we could use the props and then access props.post, or what we can do is we can just use it like that. So here I say it's just post, and it will just get this post from here. We don't need to use the props. So for now, let's demonstrate something. So here Now I'll say post dot title. For example, we want to show our title here. Now let's see if it works. Now here we need to go back out from our API, so in a normal page, and then we need this post from here, for example. So let me copy this one, but the point is here we can't use the title. If we try this like that, you will be returned to 404 page. Now our slugs looks like this. Just we need one hyphen between each word, so like that, and then it should return us to that page. But here we are missing also our page, so we name this page as post. So it's just coming from here. We got post and then we got the slug. So that's why we need the post page here also. So let me press the enter and see if we get the data. Now again, here we got some error, and this error says that we are not getting the data. So the fetches failed. Now the reason is here we are using HTTPS, and if we go back and remove this to HTTP, it should just work. Now let's remove this from here also. Now as you see, we got still the error. So let's save this again. And now it seems like working. Now it's loading, and as you see, we got our title. So it's according to our post, which is the post number 3. So it's just here. And if you use, for example, 2, I think we got this also. No, we don't have that, so we have to get access to every post title. So for this we need our details page, but it is working according to our desire. Now let me use some more examples. For this I need this URI from here, so I'll be opening this just here. So we got post 3 and then we got just post 4. So our new post 4. So let's use this one, not 2 but 4. So let's see if it's working. Now as you see, we got the post number 4. Now this way we can use the details of that and everything we want inside our details component here. So let's design this. So for this, as we did before, we'll be using the container. So to make everything center, so here I'll say container, and I'll use this here also. So let me import the container if we can, like this. No, so let's import this just directly. Now import container. So we need the container from material UI, so MUI material. Now we got the container, so everything should be centered. Now we have some mistake here. So container, okay, the name was not correct. So like this, let's save this, and as you see, it's in the middle, so it is working. So now inside this, instead of this post, we just make everything simple as possible. So here let's create one more component, one flex component, for example. So for this I'll say const, and then for example we call this flex container, so it will be our flex box. You can call this box or flex box, whatever you want. So it will be just styled, and then we need the box. So and here we need our curly braces. Then I'll say here display of this will be just flex, and then we need everything the same way. So flex direction, it will be just column, for example. So column like this, and then justify contents, it will be center. So justify contents like that, and this should be center. And also I'll say align items center, so everything will be just centered here like that. And then we use this flex container from here. So inside our container we'll be using that, so let's use this. And then of course we need to close this one, so close flex container like that. Now inside this we can use our text. Now here, for example, let me use some box like that, and we have to import the box from material UI. So it's imported. Now also let's give this some design here. So I'll say SX. You can use, of course, another component, but here I'll say width of this will be 80%, for example. So we don't want to cover everything. And also align content. So it will be center. Just like that. It is center here. And then inside this, we'll be using some typography. So we got our box. Inside that typography, let's align this also center. So text align will be just center. And also the variant of this, for example, will be just H3. Now, if you're not familiar with Material UI 5, I have already created a course on that, so please watch that to follow this course also. MS, now the margin will be just 3, like that. So, and inside this, then we use our title. So here I'll say post, it is in lowercase, so post.title. And then, of course, we need some more boxes for other things. So let's just copy this one from here. And we'll be using that for others also. So here we need this, I think, twice. Because we got our content and then we got our excerpt. So let's use the excerpt first, like that. Oh, not here, but we need this. So we need the excerpt. Just let me copy this. We need this down here. So excerpt, and here let's make this a little smaller, so 70%. And also for the next one will be our author, for example. So author, and here we don't give it any width because it's just author, it's just simple name here. So but what we can do is we could just say by, and then we'll use this as bold. So you can use the bold from your CSS, or you can use any HTML element here also. So let me do this like that. So as you see, we got just a simple HTML element here. And after this typography, we need our image, but this box is also not looking good here. Because it's just author, we don't need any CSS, so let's remove this one. And then for our image, we also need the flex box, so let's use the flex container again. So here as a flex container, like that, and inside this we'll be using the image. Now this is important to import the image from Next and not from Material UI. So here for this we'll go here and I'll say import, so image from, and then we need next and then image. So we need the next image. So here this will be imported just like this. With that being said, now let's use this. Now the image is here, so let's make this capital letter like that. And now we can copy this and use it here. And also here we need some properties. So I'll say the source of this image will be from our post, so post.image URL, and then we should define the height and the width here, because otherwise you will see some errors here. So, and the width, so it will be here, and I'll say it is just 800 pixel. You can use any image size you want. Now we got our flex container, and then we can use the same flex container for our content here. So it will be the full detail of this post. So you can of course continue and use this for how much data you want. So for us, for now, it will be just simple content here. So let me use a typography, and here I'll say text align will be just center, so we get a center text here. And then let's give it some margin from top, so we get a good margin from our image. So margin top of 2, and the variant of, so body 1, for example. So it doesn't matter any variant you use, it's up to you. It's paragraph, so that's why I'm using body 1. And then inside this we'll use curly braces, and it will be post dot content, I think. Yeah, content. So let's save this. Now let's see the result. So now we got this, and if we go back, we got some error. A style does not defined. We have to import the styled. So let's import this also from MUI material. So it's here. Now we got no error. So let's go ahead. And now as you see, we got our post, which is the title of the post. And then we got our excerpt, and then the author name. And after that our image, and then we got our content. Now they are not looking good because we are using some dummy data. So let's create a good post so we can see everything better. So for this, of course, we need the postman. So let's use the postman. So we need to post some data. First of all, let's get something. So we'll get some data so we can copy that. So up to here, copy this inside the body. We already got the data, so we don't need that copy also. So here we'll give some title. So let me use the title of this one from here. Copy this. I hope I don't get any copyright issue here. So that's why let me use something else. For example, lorem ipsum generator. So we get some dummy data here. I don't want to get any copyright issue. So let's use this one, or generate, and it's here. So we got something from here. So now I'll just copy this one, and we need this here. So like that. And also for excerpt, it will be the same thing with excerpt. So excerpt will be there, but with some data. That will be nice. Also for content, let's just copy this from here because we can't read this, but still it's good to have. We have author, it's okay, and then we got this data, and instead of author, I'll say this is administrator. So like that. And then featured will be 1, and the category is just category 2. It's not a problem. So let's send this. We got it. Let's get it and see. Now as you see, we got a detailed post here. So now let's use that post. Now for this, we need the slug of that. So as you see, we got a long slug here. So let's copy this one. So here we need this. Now let me paste this one and enter this. Now here we go. We got some title here, and we got our excerpt. Now they're not looking good at the moment, but by administrator, we got our image, and we got some details here. Now here also for this one, let's cover the page for that. So for this, we'll go here, and for the content, flex container, and we'll say SX, because later on, if we make this just responsible, then we will get some issues. So that's why I'll say here width of this will be just 90 VH. So like that, and we'll save it. And if you go back, as you see, we got everything looking good here. And also our title is not looking good here. So let's see what should we change. So for this, now here we got H3 for everything here, and that's what we don't need. So here I'll say it's just body, and also for this one it will be just body. So everything will be small, but just our title will be larger. So let's save this, and if you go back, now as you see, we got our beautiful title here, we got some excerpt, and then the administrator name, as it is just here. As you see, it's not centered, we are centering everything. So the only difference is this, it's just starting from left, but I think center is much better than using everything in left. If you want like that, so you have to come here and say text align at left, or just remove the text align, and this will align itself in left, just like that. Now as we got this, let's go ahead and make this again center, because it's much better. And then we got excerpt, so we got here also excerpt, and then we got by Bill Gates. It's very small here with the date. Now it's up to you. If you want to use like that, you can use the created at here and use a pipe, but also the text you can make smaller. But for me, I think that's better. For the date, we can create this also. So we can use just this pipe from here and also the date. So let me copy this one so it doesn't confuse you. Now as we got the bolt, now here we can paste those data also. Now it is up to you if you want to use this just like that, or you can use here, for example, created at, and it will be post dot created at, so it will be the same thing. For now, let me leave this just as it is. So save it so we can see the difference. Now as we come back here, you'll see the date is also here by administrator and everything is looking nice. So guys, we are almost done. We have created our dynamic routes also. But the point is here, if we go back to our website, so if we go to our local host, now if we enter this, so here now we got our data, but if we click on them, nothing happens. Now we should be able to send our user to details page by just one click here. Otherwise, they have to just copy everything, make themselves the excerpt, and this is, I think, a bad user experience. So let's see how to do this. For this, we'll come here, and then we need our card, because inside our card, we got our link also here. So as you see, we got this links props.link source. Now how to implement this one from here? Now for that, we'll go to hero or any component you're using that card, and inside this we'll be using also the link source, because this link source got the link from Next.js, which is just coming from next link. Now it's also important to use the link from next link and not any other library like Material UI, because that way it will not work. So we need this link source, and then we got our href, which is the props.link source, which we can define inside our other components. But also it's important to understand that in Next.js 12 what we did was that we have created an a tag also here. So otherwise it won't work for us. For example, just using the href directly doesn't work in Next.js 12. But from Next.js 30 and on, you can use this without this a tags. You can just define this href here and put your link source. So for us, as we are using the props, so let's add some source for this. Now for that, we'll go here inside our card. It doesn't matter, wherever you have imported that card, you have also access to this link source. So here we can now define the source of our link. So for that, as we know, we got our post. So we are getting access everything with post. Then we can say here post.image source, but as we want to return this to this path here, for example, it should route to posts and then some slug here. So that's what we have to implement here also. So now what we do is we'll come here, and here inside this curly braces, we will say I want to use the backticks, so we can use the post or some string and also JavaScript. So here the post, it will be our page name, and then after this we need the slug. So here I'll say post. Now we need a $sign here. So $, curly braces, not this one. So like that, and here I'll say post.image URL or post.slug, because we just need slug. So it will just route us to there. It will go inside our post folder, and then here it will search for any slug which we pass here. Now as we are mapping everything, so we are mapping on each post, so that's why for each iteration of our map we will get new slug like new title and image, we get the new slug also. So this way we have different links for different cards. So now let's save this one. So now if we go back and click on this, it doesn't work. But here if we click on these posts, it is working. It is just returning our post according to their link. Now here it's not working because we are using this image link or this link source here, but not inside our main card here, which is this link source here. Now we can use this like that and then save this. And now if we go back and click on that, now it should just return this. Now as you see, we got our details page. Now the point is here, it takes something long because as we click on this page or in this post, the Next.js first create the page for us and then return us to that page. So that way the user will not see any kind of white page until the data is updated or uploaded here. So that's also a great benefit of using Next.js. Otherwise, in React, we have to do everything by ourselves. But now there is also a problem. If we click on this, it doesn't show any spinner or anything for the user. And the user may think it's not working and they will try to click on it. So that's what we will cover also in next parts. So don't worry about that also. Now as we got our post, so as you see, if we click here, it doesn't return us to that particular page because here we are also not using yet our link. So for this, I'll just go here and let me just copy this one because it will be the same thing. And then we need the section, and here we need our cards where we are using this. So let me search for that, or this card is here. So inside this we got this link source. So here we can just paste that from there. So it will just send us to that post folder here or post page, and then inside that it will return us this slug. So let's save this one and check everything out. So as we got this here, now let me click on this one and it will return us now to that page. Now as you see, we got the details page and everything is looking the same way. And if we go back here, click on this one, it will just recreate for us the page, and after that you can see we got our post according to their slug or ID, whatever you want, and here the same way. So everything is working as we want. So for now I think it's enough for this part. In next part we will create, or we will learn how to create posts, delete posts, and also update them. So we will learn everything about form submission in Next.js, and also we will take care of that spinner, which is also very important. With that being said, don't forget to subscribe my channel, and also if you like the video, please share to your friends. So see you in the next part.